Should be working. All right. And to the person that's already given it a thumbs down, just leave. I mean, thumbs down to you too. What an angry, horrible person. I mean, gee, 2 people. I guess that'll just invite more. Whatever. Whatever, people. You should tune out immediately because you're not going to like the rest of this. This is a place for success and all things related to that. And you guys are in the wrong frame of mind. That's hilarious. Waiting to be negative. I couldn't live my life like that. All right, let's see here. This. All right, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Beautiful. I think it's working. All right, Spooky, Ralph, Nikki, everybody, you guys hearing me? You hear me okay? Audio? I know I'm not facing the camera. All right, let me post this link on Patreon, and then we shall get started. Too bad Spectrum's going to get fired tomorrow. But I paid too much money for it to not work. I need fiber anyway. I need a gigabit. All right. All right, so we're good to go. Everybody here? We'll give the Patreon folks a couple of minutes. I'm going to go get a glass of water, and kind of frame this up. Yeah, Spectrum, just no bandwidth. You know, we got connection, my router works, so everybody's at home on their Fortnite and, you know, Call of Duty and FaceTiming and Zooming, and I pay $75 a month for 200 megabits or whatever it is, and I'm a zero tolerance kind of guy. If it doesn't work, you're fired. I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be right back. I do want to grab my iPad. All right. Good thing is the version that I edit and post online for later, I'm gonna cut all this stuff out. Yep. You gotta connect to my hotspot. There you are. Beautiful. All right, so see how we want to frame this up. See, that's the Hurricane Highway talking head background. When you do those interviews, you know, like you see on The Office, when they talk to the camera, it's called a talking head. I learned that. I learned that from my wife, actually. All right, so why don't we get started formally? My iPhone, there we go. Got all my notes right here. All right. So I've got 7:41. We're a little late, but that's fine. Appreciate you tuning in. I'm going to start formally here in 3, 2. All right, good evening, everybody. Mark Suddeth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Welcome to what I equate to as a shareholder meeting. It is a meeting of the people that are supporting this project, that have supported it. Some of you for more than 15 years, some of you brand new. And tonight, we're going to talk about at least me to you first, and then for those of you that are watching through this special interface that I've set up, where you can watch the YouTube feed and chat at the same time. After I'm done, I'm going to keep going, and we're going to look at the chat together, and we'll discuss things back and forth. I've turned off the YouTube chat. There's just no need for the distraction. Unfortunately, a good deal of social media is trolls and negative people that are just there to distract and create problems. A small minority of people are there to enjoy it and to get a benefit out of it. And you're the ones that I'm speaking to. The rest of you that like to thumbs down everything and create chaos, well, that's just what's going on in your life on a daily basis, I guess, and there's nothing we can do for you. But it means that the YouTube chat is turned off. And besides, it is the people that are supporting this with their own positivity, their own encouragement, and their own hard-earned money that I want to talk to tonight, because we are full of positivity. We're full of success. It has been a successful year. It's been a successful 15 years. It's had its ups and downs. But this is a very up year, and at least for our project. And we're going to talk about all that. So welcome. I appreciate you gathering around this virtual campfire, which reminds me, and this is going to be very informal. It really is. I'm just going to I've got notes and whatnot, but I'm going to interject a couple of humorous things here and there to kind of try to take the the edge off a little bit. And we're going to start my idea of sitting around the campfire, so to speak. We don't need any music, but there you go. See, we're gathered around the fire. I should just leave this running in the background. Should have thought of this earlier. There you go. So yeah, see, we're literally gathered around the campfire. Why is his synthesizer on fire? That's what people are going to be wondering that tune in. I promised, that it was not going to be all serious and whatever. I mean, it is, but it isn't. So there you are. We're gathered around the campfire tonight to discuss where we have come from, where I've come from with this, where we went this year with it, and where I want to go. All right, so let's start at the beginning, shall we? So, history of the project. Well, as you know, if you have seen the Hurricane Highway episode 1, and if you haven't seen it, then when you're done with this, you definitely need to go watch it. I started this whole thing back in college. I've always wanted to get into weather, especially hurricanes. That was my passion. I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. Nobody ever knows where their passion truly comes from, whether it's, in this case, weather. If you want to be a surgeon, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a veterinarian, or you want to go in the military, or you're going to want to sit there and crunch numbers as an accountant. Some people are passionate about being an accountant, I guess. I was passionate about getting into weather, and it's just one of those things. It's kind of like music. Hans Zimmer said, I don't know where music comes from, and I don't know when the faucet will be turned off, paraphrasing him. And it's the same thing with this passion about weather, except I am confident that the faucet will never be turned off. I'm interested in weather, especially extreme weather. There's something very exciting about it. It's bigger than us. And I guess it began, once I was born. It was just part of me instinctually. So ever since I graduated college in 1995, I've made it a point to follow that passion. And I've had some great people to help me along the way. And over those years, from 1995, literally that same summer that I graduated until this year, I have been able to accomplish all of my goals and then some, literally. And I've been able to do so with the support of my family, my mother and father, who became my wife eventually, Rebecca, and my 7 children. That doesn't mean it's always been easy. And that'll come out in the book someday, some of the challenges. And we have the podcast, Stories from the Hurricane Highway, but the really intimate details, we'll save that for the hardcover book one day. And that'll be coming, you'll see. But seriously, it has been a remarkable journey, and there's been different ways that it has been funded, and different people that have been involved, like I said, over the years. And so for the first part of my career, a lot of it had to do with making maps. My company is called Hurricane Maps Enterprises. That is my legal tax company, whatever, as I file my taxes each year. My business is called Hurricane Maps Enterprises. It's a sole proprietorship. And it was all about making maps. I made tracking maps. Do I have one in here? Should have brought one. Some of you own one, the one that I printed this year. There's one over there. It's too far. I'll probably trip over something. Anyway, I made maps. I started doing storm surge maps as well. Multimedia graphics. I won an award. Is that in here? I think my wife put some of the stuff in here while I was gone. She was fixing my office up. We've been here in this house 5 years. I don't see it. It must be in the garage still. Anyway, I won an award for my work in 1999 from FEMA. I got to work with some great companies over the years, such as Lowe's, Home Improvement Stores, and Sprint, Bank of America. And then smaller companies have been sponsors or supporters of this work over the years. The website started in 1999, HurricaneTrack.com. Actually, it was called Hurricane99.com that year. And then I bought the domain coincidentally with it, HurricaneTrack.com. And ever since, it has been flourishing. I started doing what we now know as blogging and updating stuff from the field as best I could. In the old days, we would take a laptop, plug it into a hotel room or a gas station or a McDonald's, get that modem cranked up and try to log in and see what's going on. In 2001, the mobile internet came into play. I had a Sprint bar phone, and I was able to connect that phone through a tether to my laptop. I worked with Jesse Bass, my good friend from Virginia, to do that during Tropical Storm Barry in '01, and that was really the beginning of it all, where we knew we had something very special. We had a live webcam that was updating, are you ready? Every 5 minutes. Ooh, 5 minutes. Back then to us, that was everything. We were able to update HurricaneTrack.com from the field. We were able to put information on there. We developed online tracking maps as far back as 2001. My good friend Jason Sikoski, who grew up with me as a child, and he's stayed a good friend as an adult. He works in Cary, North Carolina. He himself has a family now. He developed these amazing tracking maps that were way ahead of their time back in the early 2000s. And then as time progressed, other people started doing things. Multimedia companies came along. The Weather Channel did more. CNN did more. The internet became bigger. Then we got into the age of social media. Around the mid-2000s, late 2000s, of course, Facebook and Twitter in their infancies at that point in time. You think about '07, '08, '09, 2010, etc. And then we really were in the age of social media by the 2010s and since then. And I got involved with that. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter were the main ones that I embraced. We began streaming live back 15 years ago, 2005. HurricaneTrack.com was the very first internet site, weather-related site, news-gathering site, because it is news, weather is news. It's the first entity in the world to stream live, wall-to-wall, during a hurricane, and that hurricane was Katrina. Yeah, there was periods of time where we were off air, but from driveway to driveway, as much as I could, I streamed live. It was myself and Mike Watkins from South Florida, who's been a longtime friend and contributor to what we've been doing. He was there. He remembers. And it's not a bragging thing. It's just a fact. We were the first. Neil Armstrong was the first man on the moon. HurricaneTrack.com was the very first entity to stream live during a hurricane from multiple locations at the same time. That was Katrina in August of 2005. Since then, it has only grown. And I would say that it has gotten a lot better. Over the years, things changed. In 2007, the economy began to collapse. There's a great movie, kind of a biopic, documentary-esque, called The Big Short, that stars Steve Carell and others that chronicle kind of what happened. If you remember that, the big crash, the big short from the real estate, the bubble. And with that, the world economy collapsed. And all of my partnerships with the big companies, Lowe's and Sprint, and I had a little partnership with Bank of America, they disappeared. My project was just a line on a spreadsheet. And all it took was one phone call, and it was all over. And that happened in November of 2007. I remember it very vividly. And, it wasn't personal, it was just business. They were trying to squeeze their budgets and cut programs that were no longer as important to them. We were all in it together. It resulted, as a lot of Americans and people the world over in me losing my house. We had to leave where we lived in our nice golf community. We don't play golf. It was just a nice neighborhood. And get into Wilmington. We lived on the outskirts. But you know what? It was interesting because this is the place to be. And it's interesting how one door closes, another door opens, and all the opportunities because of it. It actually turned out to be a very good thing. And the one thing that it taught me was a word that my father taught me, and that was to persevere and to be persistent. But that word perseverance and all the definitions surrounding it is exactly what I did. Under tremendous pressure from my family, either my immediate family or in-laws, etc., and even close friends and relatives, whatever, you should get a real job. I had lost all of my funding from Lowe's. They were the biggest supporter of my work. I mean, I was literally working full-time with them. Sprint, same thing. And I wouldn't do it. I refused to just walk away from everything I had built because I knew there was a future for it. I had to stick with it. And it was very stressful. I mean, believe me. And I did. I stuck with it. Had a few smaller companies that would help out from time to time. Members of our HurricaneTrack community, our early crowdfunding group that really began in 2005, when we had to start a subscription-based service to pay for everything, some of those people stuck by. It wasn't enough to give me a comfortable living, but it was enough to keep me hanging on by my fingernails. My wife working many, many extra hours to make ends meet. Our kids, we never had to really go without. We weren't suffering. I don't want to make it sound like that. It's not a woe is me tale. It's a tale of perseverance and people believing in me, and most notably my wife especially. And we got through it. And there was ups and downs and ups and downs. And finally, by about 2014, after the economy collapsed and things started to come back, and it's just a statement of fact. There is no politics here, but during the Obama administration years, there was a rebuilding, and I did the same thing. And again, it's not political. I'm just making a statement there. Under those 8 years, I was able to regroup myself, and by 2014, everything was looking better for the United States economy, the world economy as a whole. And the Weather Channel approached me again. They've approached me many times over the years. But this new president, David Clark, had approached me. I don't remember how new he was in 14, but he invited me to Atlanta, and I met with him and Brian Norcross and a gentleman named Tom Lee and others in the executive realm up there. And long story short, it took a few months, as it should, with a major television network, and we negotiated a contract that for the first time, I would be working directly with the Weather Channel. And it was really, really good funding. It was a remarkable opportunity, and it allowed me to be able to move forward. And we were able to build a house because of that, and that's where I am now. That is this house in Wilmington. And now I don't have to deal with the commute from Leland, which is over the bridge, and the 4 million people that live over there now. Just kidding, it seems like it. And I'm in a good neighborhood. I got a good office. This is my office in my house. And I worked with the Weather Channel in 2014, and things changed and didn't really do much with them in 15. 16, it was on again, 17 on again, and I've had that relationship ever since. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. But that was kind of the big break that I needed. Bridging the gap year after year, just hanging on, waiting for something to come along as we developed this technology to stream live better and better in these hurricanes and other severe weather, flooding, blizzards, whatever. And I was doing it, and had different people helping out. This gentleman named Kerry Mallory from Texas, Houston, Texas, was a very substantial angel investor that he was helping out with all of that we were trying to do, helping to fund this technology, and he was hands-on. Would get out into the field, help us with it, help us with the Herbie project, the weather balloon, developing the new generation of streaming cameras, and he was right there with us. Kerry passed away in January, unfortunately. He had a stroke in 2016, and everything caught up, and he passed away this past January. We miss him dearly, but he's just not here physically. That's the only difference in my mind, and everything else about him is very much still here. And we've been able to move ahead and do some extraordinary things because of the belief that he had in what we were doing, and the great people that I've been able to meet because of him and because of working with the Weather Channel. I remember how proud he was when I told him that I was going to be able to work with the Weather Channel, but I wasn't working exclusively, like, it was still a contract, and it was negotiated every year, and you know how that can go. Media changes, the economy changes, television's changing, and so, like I said, in 2017, 2018, 2019, there were contracts. And at the same time, though, media was changing. And I needed to be able to figure out, well, the Weather Channel is not going to be a full-time job, as much as I'd like it to be, and some people there wanted it to be too, but it wasn't working out. But we still work together, and you make concessions, and you work together, and you meet in the middle on things. It's not all or nothing. And I thought at the same time, from advice from a longtime friend of ours named Dan up in New York, he told me about something called Patreon. This was around 2016. He said it's a crowdfunding thing, kind of like Kickstarter, but not really. It's not all or nothing, where you set a goal, and if you meet the goal, you get the funding, and if you don't, you don't. You should check it out. I looked at it, and it was interesting because he told me about a guy that he followed that blogs and does podcasts and whatever on Patreon about going on cruises. And you look and you see, well, he's got X amount of patrons, these people that support it, and they pay a few dollars a month, and he was making $600, $700, $800 a month or something like that. And I thought, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? How boring is that? In my mind, I don't care about knowing about cruises, but Dan and his wife enjoy cruising. And so to him, it was very important. And I understood that. I was like, well, I guess for people that really are into the weather, and especially hurricanes, I could see how it could be important. So I'll try it. And I signed up on Patreon. I got my Patreon page going, and I put it out there, and we had a couple people. Carrie was probably the very first patron at, $10 a month or something. And a couple other people came in, and it just kind of stayed around single digits, right, for most of 2016. And then in 2017, something remarkable happened. YouTube enabled live streaming, just like I'm doing right now, in their app. I didn't have to have a third-party app, and so I took this iPhone right here, and I started streaming on YouTube with it during, I think it was Tropical Storm Cindy, in July, I think it was, of 17. And my YouTube channel, which I had started in 2006, went from about 1,500 subscribers. Really, that's how low it was back then, to, I don't remember, a couple thousand. I mean, it grew because people were watching live. And by the time we got to Harvey, in August, it was even larger, the increase. And I picked up a few more patrons, and more people started, oh, hey, here's $10 for what you're doing. I appreciate it. I started seeing the potential here. And then we got through Irma, and a pretty big season overall, as you certainly recall. And Patreon grew a little bit, but my YouTube grew a lot. I don't have the exact numbers, but it was definitely a big increase. So much so that different companies who track this kind of stuff, I guess there's some algorithm that gets tripped. I started getting emails. They thought that this kind of growth was just going to keep going. I'm like, well, no, after it's hurricane season, people are just not going to tune in as much. They wanted to have me start doing like influencer, talk about stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was not interested. I didn't want to be a pitch man. If I'm going to pitch something, I'm going to pitch what we're doing. So I turned them all down, and it was like, nah, no thank you. But I thought that was interesting that they thought that my growth, was it exponential? I don't remember, but it was certainly rapid organic growth. They thought it was a trigger to some superstardom, like Pat and Jen or somebody. My son watches that. They have like 14 million subscribers. And I'm like, nah, it's not going to continue like this. It's only going to skyrocket when there's hurricanes, and we never know when there's going to be the next hurricane. And they're like, oh, okay, most of these companies were from California, and what do they know about hurricanes, right? So anyway, it was an interesting moment. Well, we're growing. So in 2018, I just kind of had this revelation one night in bed, just sitting there looking through social media and different message boards about hurricanes, and just thought, this Patreon thing, I really could do something with it. Why don't I just put everything into it, as I say, go all in, and we're going to make it grow. And so I announced this tier program that if you pledge at this tier, up to this tier, you get certain things, and we can maybe have it so that people can join in and actually help. If you contribute, you can come help. You can kind of do what Carrie did. You know, as a contributor, he's also helping in person. And that got people's attention. And lo and behold, we had a very, very busy season that year, culminating, of course, with Category 5 Hurricane. And my Patreon grew even more, crossed the $1,000 mark or something like that in 2018. I don't remember how many total patrons, but I now had some level of sustainable income every month. And it was like, we got something here. This could really, really work. We got to grow it, and we got to, licensing my video. I was working with them, but again, it was not all in on with them. They were not adding me to the company payroll. Just it wasn't going to happen. And so that was fine. We said, okay, we'll work on a case-by-case basis. I'm going to continue growing my Patreon. And we were all on the same page about that. And so we got to 2019, and people like Brent, he was one of the very first, I think he was the first patron that jumped in at the highest level possible to contribute financially and come up and help. And I didn't know him from Adam, as they say. He showed up in 2018 for Florence, and then again for Michael. And if you know the story, the rest, as they say, is history. He has become an incredible asset on so many levels that we, from MacGyver level and the amazing things he can come up with to Indiana Jones, right? He is an adventurer, very smart, very articulate, very skilled with the drone. I mean, what an amazing asset. And we knew there had to be other people out there like Brent as well. So 2019, it grew even more. And I got the idea of getting away from the long format hurricane, tracking the hurricanes movies, these long documentaries, which I have been producing since 2004. And I wanted to do something different after 2019. I wanted to do a television type series, an episodic series. So I came up with the idea of the Hurricane Highway. And I figured I've got enough support in the off season from our patrons that I can do this and justify the amount of time that it's going to take to put into editing that whole thing on this laptop over here to my right. And so I started working on it. And I talked to my good friend Mike Farrow. He thought I was crazy. Dude, trying to edit together a TV show, you're going to have the talking head shots. That's what this is called when you talk to the camera. Interview based, and instead of just me narrating it and 8 episodes. He was like, oh God, you're never, good luck, and yet here it is, 5 episodes in. I got 3 to go, and it's been a challenge, but it worked, and I'm really proud of it. So we got to 2020 with tremendous enthusiasm and success and a good group of people following. And we knew starting in really March into April that this season was going to be potentially very big. Gigantic climatic signals, the climate signals. Ben Knoll was talking about it, Eric Webb, Phil Klotzbach, others. We had a hunch that this season had the potential to be historic, very similar to 2005 in terms of the amount of activity. Now, you never know where these hurricanes are going to hit, of course, and who's going to be the unlucky ones, etc. You don't know that in advance. But the signals were there, and we were ready. At the same time, and I laugh because you have to, started hearing, I did in January on NPR. I listened to Morning Edition when I take the kids to school. They hate that. They want to listen to their radio. And I started hearing about, this coronavirus phenomenon in China. And, long story short, we know where that has ended up. So in between February and now, there was this period where I thought it's all over. The whole world economy is going to collapse. Nobody's going to be able to afford anything. They're probably going to lock everybody down to the point where we can't even travel outside of the state. Greg Nordstrom and I talked about that frequently. Here's a little secret. One thing that I like to do is go on a walk. Usually late at night, I put my Bluetooth on, little headset, and I get the phone and I just go walking around the neighborhood. People think that I'm a crazy man talking to myself, and in reality, I'm talking to Greg. And in the past, I used to talk to Carrie, and we would just talk hours and hours. And it's actually good for keeping the weight off and keeping me healthy, especially after 2018, and also just coming up with ideas. And that's what Carrie and I used to do. Greg and I do that now. Sometimes I talk to Tony and my good friend Tony Bright. But anyway, Greg and I would talk often in March and April about how worried we were that we're not even going to be able to do anything. It just looked really grim back then. You remember, we were all there. And of course that didn't happen. We had the lockdown, as it's called, and things started to reopen again around Memorial Day. But something very interesting happened. And now we get to the present. All throughout this time, there was a little bit of a drop off in last year's patronage. People, the next month would come around and they wouldn't renew for whatever reason. But at the same time, I would talk about it on my updates, my off-season discussions, and one or two people would come on. I was promoting the Hurricane Highway. I started my podcast, Stories from the Hurricane Highway, last December, and we had some more content, more reasons to log on besides just the hurricane stuff, the outlook and discussion, or the lure of watching a hurricane when it comes in. There was more reasons behind it. So we would add 2 or 3 people a month. I thought, you got to be kidding me. In the worst economic downturn since the 07-08 financial collapse, this global pandemic, millions of people out of work, and my net gain from March to April or April to May, a few people dropped off, but more would sign up. I might have been ahead 2 or 3 extra, patrons. I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but it would be +3, +7 at the end of April into May or whatever. And I thought, wow, really? Awesome. This is great. These people are willing to, they trust me or something. They have a passion. There's got to be a reason. And so we went with it. We just kept doing what we were doing. We had a plan. We wanted more equipment. We put our wish list out, and people responded, sending in equipment. The iPad Pro, the GoPros, my drone, batteries. We needed lots of batteries, these big battery packs, more Nest cameras, more memory cards, and people stepped up and shipped them to me to put into operation, and we did immediately. And by the time we got to Memorial Day, the funding was there that we were able to go to the Great Plains and test our weather balloon project. And that was kind of the beginning of coming out into the field. We're going to deal with this pandemic thing. We're going to be smart about it, not thumb our noses at it, that, there's that whole, is it real, is it not, whatever. We applied our hurricane preparedness thought to that same process. Avoid large crowds, be smart, whatever, but operate, do your stuff. And we did. And it was myself and Greg. Greg wasn't on that one. He joined us for the hurricanes, starting with Cristobal, Mike, Brent, and myself, Mike Farrow. And we all went out and we tested the weather balloon project. We tried this idea that I'll talk about more in a moment with setting up like a fence for severe weather, and that was amazing. And it was just success all around. We tested things we needed to test, and the whole thing, I didn't have to worry, was financed through the support of you guys. And we were able to do it and be completely successful. At the same time, it seemed like the United States societal background was crumbling. You remember all that, the rioting that was going on, the turmoil, and yet we were out, and for us, it just seemed like that was some pasture with Brent, and my son texts me, are you going to Dallas at any time? I was like, yeah, probably tomorrow, to take Brent back to the airport. He's like, dude. Yeah. And we now know, that we were under a tremendous amount of turmoil in this country, but at the same time, we didn't lose focus. And we got to Cristobal, and then other events. I missed Hannah because I was out in the desert with studying the monsoon, which is fine. Hannah made landfall where there's more cows than people. And then the meat of the hurricane season was coming. And all along, the patronage was growing steadily. It wasn't dropping. and people kept sending equipment, and the hurricanes came. And if you've tuned in, you already know that story. I'm not going to rehash that too much. But we went out for Isaias. We went out for Laura, Marco Laura. Of course, just got back from Delta, was down there for Sally. And we executed everything to the best of our ability. And all the while, the people responded. We got to meet people through Patreon, like Spooky, we know her as Spooky, Kari from the UK, Will Woodgate, been a patron for a while now, and he signed in and said, look, I got all this time as a programmer, I'm not getting to do anything as I lost all my projects. Why don't I help you develop whatever you want tracking map wise? And so look what we've got, this amazing tracking map system. Other people, Mike Cornelius helping out with the back end. Gosh, it just goes on and on and on. This machine went into operation. And when the hurricanes showed up, this small group of people, sometimes 4 of us, Brent, Greg, Mike, and me, performed like we were a $300 million company called the Weather Channel. Remember they were purchased for about $300 million from Byron Allen's media group a couple years back. If you didn't know that, that's true. If I won the Powerball, I'd probably buy the Weather Channel, and that's a story for another day. But we were really kicking butt and doing stuff that nobody, other people have tried, and that's fine. But the way we were doing it and the scale that we were doing it in and at was remarkable. And the only bad part, if you will, is that Laura hit at night, Sally hit at night. Delta though was right up before it got dark, and in a battered Louisiana, after enduring what they did with Laura, we still pulled it off, and we got some remarkable video, remarkable data. And one of the things we've done is taken these guys right here that we now have 27 of in my garage. Every one of these purchased by people like you. Some people would send 1, some people would send 6. And you know who you are. I thought about singling people out, but I don't want to, make other people feel like, oh, I wish I could, because everybody's done tremendously. When people say, I can only give $1 a month, I can only do $10 a month, are you kidding me? It's like Legos. You add them up and you build an amazing structure, one brick at a time. And whether you're somebody that buys a complete section of that Lego set, so to speak, or you're just a one brick at a time, I don't care. It all truly adds up. And this is a great example of that, these pressure sensors. And we got data during Laura that is remarkable. And we're still going to be learning from it. We can't wait to present that at some conferences next year. So we sailed through the season with remarkable success. And it's not over yet. We still have the rest of October and November to get through. But so far, we have exceeded my expectations. Numerous cameras live, the weather stations, these little instruments that gather pressure data and other data, working with some incredible people along the way that we have met because of all of this and really branched out so that as a society, in modern time, the pandemic here related to COVID-19, we have somehow risen above that because of the positivity from you all, the encouragement. Nobody's been negative. Maybe just a tiny bit, but it's only infinitesimally small in our world. Tiny bit of negativity. Everything else, statistically speaking, it's 100%. That's how I like to look at things. Statistically speaking, we're at 100%. Positivity, encouragement, nothing but smiling faces when we go meet people. That doesn't mean there hasn't been drawbacks. We've lost some equipment here and there, but by and large, far and away, it has been very successful. So that gets me up through, generally speaking, the history of everything, the birth of Patreon, how it grew, and it's really definitely grown since Laura and Delta. 2020, we reviewed that. So as we move on, from my family to you, a huge thank you. That supporting the family, I've got to be able to do that. And if you're brand new to this, you signed up for Delta, you came in on Laura, you don't really know me yet. This, as I said earlier, is my job. I do not work at Corning. We have Corning right over there. I don't work at GE. There's a GE company here. I don't work for the hospital. I'm not a doctor. I am not a millionaire or well off financially, and then I do hurricanes as a hobby. I don't do hurricanes as a hobby and work as an airline pilot. One of our patrons I know of for sure who's a pilot. He's right here in Wilmington. And I know a lot of people would love to chase the weather, so to speak. It's always been a career for me, and it's always been a challenge as to how to fund it. And so this is what I do. And so you're helping to provide a paycheck, and that's important. I deserve to be able to do that. I work hard. The guys that are with me, that sometimes they are just in awe of how I can just keep going, and sometimes I even wonder myself how I do it. But it's because I have you guys behind me. You know what I mean? There's this expectation of greatness, and we have to accomplish these goals. It's a really positive kind of pressure. It's the good kind of stress. But this is a job, and you're helping to support that. And then above that, being able to reinvest in things like the vehicle. The Chevy Tahoe that I had for many years doesn't work anymore. It became too expensive to maintain, so we stopped using it in 2018. This year, because of the pandemic, the rental car industry was just in complete turmoil. And Thrifty had a great deal where I could rent a vehicle, not lease, it's rent, a long-term rental, 28 days at a time, with the expectation that I will do it for 1 year. It'll help them, and it helps me because I got a good rate. But that costs money, and when it's all said and done, around $6,000 for the year. The plus side is I had the patronage, the support here, the crowdfunding, that I could commit to that monthly fee. And at every 15, 17,000 miles, whatever it was on the vehicle at the time, I got to turn it in and get a new vehicle. So I was always going to have a brand new vehicle that was reliable. You cannot be out on a hurricane and it breaks down. I don't care if it's a 80 mile an hour hurricane or 180 miles per hour. You got to have a reliable vehicle. So in May, we already set that, and I've got a Ford F-150 until next May. That's fantastic, and I don't have to worry about that. Every month that it hits my credit card, part of what we gather on Patreon goes to pay that, and we're able to operate and know we've got a reliable vehicle. For Delta, I needed a bigger vehicle, so I rented a Ford Expedition, I think is what it was. That thing was massive. That was $1,100 because I got the insurance on it, of course, and I didn't have to worry about it. That's reinvesting that money. I'm not gathering all this money and storing it and going, ooh, I'm going to be rich because of you guys. I got to be able to make a living, of course, but then the rest, we make this bigger and better, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So a huge thank you to everybody. We hit a peak of 977 patrons on Patreon proper in Delta. And people are coming off their, I just wanted to be there for the hurricane. And we're going to talk about that part in a minute, the sustainability and what we call the retention. But that was really impressive. And there's a reason behind that, which we're going to get into in just a second. We got through everything up to now because of the support of people from all over the world. Norway, the UK, Nova Scotia. We got Hans that joined up this year. People from Louisiana, people from Texas. And some of these people we've been able to meet in person, and that means a lot to me too. I'm going to talk about opportunities for that later as well. That successful in growing this during Delta, as an example. And now we're going to try to get into some nuts and bolts of some things. We met a guy through Rob Perillo, chief meteorologist at KATC in Lafayette, named Don Moe. And Don, if you're watching, you know what I'm going to talk about here. My friend Mike Farrow had been telling me, you got to do more with Facebook. Now, I've been on Facebook since '09. It just hasn't grown much. You look at some pages like Mike's weather page, way. I guess that's the same as subscribers. Then HurricaneTrack. And I was almost ready to give up on Facebook. I've been posting stuff and it just never seems to grow. My YouTube grew far and away faster than Facebook did. Twitter, 40-something thousand followers on Twitter, and I'm very grateful for that. it doesn't give me an ego boost. It's people that, it's my audience. It's great to see it grow. Without the audience, there's no reason for me to be here. But why didn't Facebook grow? Mike told me, stay with it, stay with it. So enter Delta, and then Rob, had told me about this guy, Don Moe, down in Sycamore Point, Delta. And we met him, and boy, oh boy, he was so excited about what we were doing. He immediately, what we call, got it. He understood why we were there, what our mission was, and wanted to help. So he went and talked about it on a Facebook group for Sycamore Point folks, and many of those people became patrons. They signed up because we were going to have a live camera, and we were going to be able to see what was going on, and they supported the project. And that really opened my eyes to the power of social media, and Facebook in particular. Time for water. And we're going to need to do that more. And all right, hopefully it's back. Had some buffering there. Come on, Verizon, don't let me down. We want to find these Facebook groups and let them know. And yes, it helps to grow it from a financial perspective, but the people in Sycamore Point wanted to know what was happening, and we had a way to do that. And so it's that help me, help you scenario. And we definitely need to do that more. We learn more. We learned from CJ, who's helping us on Facebook. Mike started to help out as an administrator. And that's something we're going to work on for the future. Growing our presence on Facebook. Working more with these Facebook groups. Maybe there's a community group, a city group, a neighborhood group, an island group. Think about Dauphin Island or Gulf Shores, or maybe there's something for Biloxi, Mississippi, or the Louisiana coast as a whole, and to a community like Sycamore Point. That was a real eye-opener, and it showed me the power of it. That very much like public radio, we're trying to support our project through memberships that can benefit everything in the future. So it's this loop, a very positive loop. Huge thanks to Don for helping to steer us in that direction. And he said, trust me, people are going to respond positively. He vouched for me, for our project. He didn't know me. I guess if I'm a friend of Rob Perillo, I must be okay, because Rob is as good as it gets. He's a great guy, and it's just all that trust and somebody on the inside. And so we're going to work on that more and more for the future, because that will help to grow. Another thing that I want to do for next year, in the off season, I want to stress test how many cameras can we put in a single location, such as Dauphin Island or Sycamore Point, as an example. So one of the things I want to do in the off season, probably in February, is go down to Dauphin Island, work with the local officials there so they know we're doing it, and some homeowners there, and let's find out how many cameras, live cameras, can we put and they still work without them taxing each other. Because remember, they all run off of the Verizon LTE network, and there's only so much bandwidth that they can suck up before it's all gone. Kind of like my neighborhood tonight when I was trying to do this over my Wi-Fi. Remember? Buffering more now? CJ is telling me that I'm buffering now. It's not showing me that I'm buffering. That's unfortunate. And he says, yeah. All right, well, maybe it's recording. Also, I'm going to keep talking like everything's fine and dandy, because it doesn't show me that I'm buffering. So I'm going to say, geez, that's too bad. Maybe I should have just recorded this and just posted it. I wanted it to be live so we can interact. Let's see what he's... Okay, there we go. All right, maybe we're back. So one of the things we want to do is to stress test the live cameras in the off season and see how many we can run in an area like Dauphin Island. Is it 6? Is it 10? Is it only 4? Is it just 2? I don't know. We've never done that. But we want to do that. I want to see how many freaking cameras can we put out there. But that's going to also mean that we're going to need a lot of hotspots, and we're going to need funding for that. Those are not free. So that's one thing I want to do in the off season, is how many cameras can we put in a single location to give us more views and more chances in case one goes down. You just never know. And additionally, Okay, it's back. Like, it's back as in the stream is back or the buffering is back. What's it, CJ? I'm able to talk, right? That's pretty cool. Stress test the system, see how many we could do, because what I would like to do is eventually have several camera systems, live camera systems, in a single area. So like for Delta, we had Creole, at the corner there of 87 or 82 and 27. So maybe one there and then another one a couple blocks down, and maybe one up the street. If you have 3 cameras within a mile of each other, that's okay. Can we do it though? So he says I'm all good. Good. So we got to do that in the off season. The other part of this is to start reinvesting some of these funds, especially if we can keep it at a certain level. I'll talk about that shortly. I want to expand beyond Verizon. Now, Verizon, I pay my bill. They are not a sponsor. I've asked them straight up, will you help support this? And for whatever reason, they don't seem interested. And you know what? I don't lose sleep over it. All right, fine. We'll just keep paying for it, and I don't mind telling people that's what we're using because doggone it works. But they are vulnerable to having problems. The tower can go down, the infrastructure. There's a number of reasons why the Verizon network can go offline. And admittedly, not being able to stream live is our number one Achilles heel. That is it. We got the whole idea completely down pat. We could have 30 live cameras out there, but if the network is down, whatever network it is, and none of those cameras are up, or 25 out of 30 are out, it's a failure in the eyes of the people supporting it. It is, it just is. Even if we have GoPros backing it up, that's later. People want to see it right now, and we have the capability of doing so. So one of the things I'm going to do is, sooner rather than later, we'll see what this next system does, but either for the next event this year, if there is one, and certainly as we get into 2021, I'm going to start investing in AT&T hotspots and accumulating those. I got to talk to them, figure out what their business accounts are like, and get on that. So that what will eventually happen, and I know it sounds excessive, but I don't see any other way around it. And I've already thought about it, and we'll see. Maybe we can figure it out. But when we get these critical situations, a really big hurricane event, where we really need to have the best chance possible for the system to stay up, for some of these cams to stay up, I see situations where we will have on a singular pole, a big light pole or someone's house or whatever, and a location. You like that fire back there going still, by the way? I catch it in the corner. I'm watching the YouTube here in my monitor of the iPhone. It's just funny. I see a situation where we will have the box, the little streaming box, with a Verizon box here, and then right above it, looking at the exact same thing, an AT&T version. 2 cameras, 2 separate cameras, 2 separate hotspots. If they both stay up for the whole hurricane, great. But what if Verizon goes out and the AT&T stays up? Even if it's just a frame here and there, we can see something. That's what we want to do, and that's what we should do. If I'm asking you to invest, we need to reinvest and get more equipment. Yes, they make something from a company called LiveView that consolidates many modems into one, but that gets so expensive. I don't know, it's like, man, it might be prohibitively expensive unless someone comes up and bankrolls that whole thing. The alternative is just add AT&T. It's not that expensive. I'm going to be straight up with you. My Verizon bill is only around $1,100 a month for all of these hotspots. They are $45 a month each, plus tax and fees, and I have 20 of them or something like that. I think that's $1,100. That's what I paid last time. And I'll reduce that in the off season, of course, but it's not that expensive. But some of these LiveView units can be several $100s each. And, it's like AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint maybe, which are kind of the same thing now, apparently, and Verizon all bundled. I don't know how they do it. But that's the really expensive way. And don't even think about satellite. That's prohibitively expensive, so forget it. Maybe a satellite phone for the future. We'll think about that. But, and the Starlink thing, already looked into it, not going to work either. I thought Starlink was from Elon Musk, was going to be like a modem or something that you could put in your box and it would just talk to the satellites. Wrong. You still need a Frisbee-sized dish, and it's just, we're not there yet. So the logical step is we're going to invest in some AT&T hotspots, and when we get those critical events, we gotta have the best chance for this camera, and this camera to stay up. We're going to double it. We are going to do that. We're going to reinvest, and we're going to do that. And we're also going to expand and hopefully add even more hotspots going. That's interesting. My wife said I was not buffering on her end. So I'm just going to keep going until I see a thing that tells me it's buffering, or otherwise I'll get sidetracked. All right. So yeah, reinvest. We're going to add AT&T. Different notes. These are not necessarily in order. Conferences for next year. Another thing for 2021. There are 3 conferences that we need to be a part of if they happen. If we can get that dadgum virus to not be an issue. So annoying. It is, isn't it? The National Tropical Weather Conference in South Padre Island. Tremendous. Excellent. It's mainly for the media. I want some of you to go to that if we have it. And a couple of you, we might even fund your participation. And in fact, I'm going to recommend that Don Moe is a speaker. I will give up my spot. They probably won't let me. That's a little arrogant to say, but I would give up my spot for Don Moe to speak if I had to, because he is fantastic. And it's a great conference. It's small, couple hundred people at the most, very intimate setting. It's fantastic. South Padre Island, end of March, early April. Hopefully it'll happen. Got to be there. Brent and I will be there. We're going to do a presentation. It's going to be fantastic. That's a big one. The National Hurricane Conference should be in Orlando. I was scheduled to speak this year, but virus. Hopefully that'll happen. I definitely want to be a part of that. Even if we have to pay to have our own session, maybe make a donation to the conference because it is a nonprofit, I'm willing to do that, and hopefully you would agree to that. Hopefully we can get the committee, I know some people, to have our own session. I would really like to have a workshop just for us. And they do have companies that do that, where we talk about our project. It's not going to profit us in any way. We got to go there because the National Hurricane Conference is more for emergency managers, law enforcement, and planning officials. We must develop relationships with these people going forward. I've got a lot of relationships, but people have come and gone. They retire. Some have passed away. They move on. There's a new guy there. He doesn't know who we are. They think we're some crazy storm chaser, and I don't want you in my community. We got to make sure people understand we are there to help your community. And it doesn't cost you as an emergency manager or a law enforcement official a dime because we are publicly supported. So we got to be at the National Hurricane Conference. And even if it comes down to saying, look, here's $5,000, put our name on the session. I want our own 45 minutes or an hour for a workshop. I'm willing to do that with this money if we have to. Hopefully it won't come to that they will see the value in helping us to help law enforcement, to help local officials. And it doesn't benefit us. We don't make money from it. It gives us the opportunity to help the community. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. It's not marketing for the sake of adding new clients. It's marketing our ability to affect the greater good. And the other one, which is very similar, is the Florida Governor's Hurricane Conference down in Southeast Florida. I want to be a part of that as well. Again, hopefully with people that I know at the National Hurricane Center, they can get me in and we can do a speaking, but I don't want 15 minutes. I don't want to sound like I'm the king of the world, but 15 minutes isn't going to cut it. We need our own workshop to talk about with a PowerPoint very succinctly and very eloquently, spelled out. Here's what we do. Here's how we're funded. Here's how we can help your community. We have to make that happen. And if I have to buy my way in, somehow I'm willing to do it. I hope it doesn't come to that. But I'm hoping that some of you can come to these conferences yourselves. And if we get to do these conferences, I fully intend in some of these cities to have meet and greets where we get to meet up. And maybe we get to go to a private dinner if you want to, or we could do a session at a hotel, get a small conference room, maybe a suite somewhere, have people come over. It's not a meet and greet like I'm a celebrity. It's a meet and greet of What do we want to do next? Do you know somebody that has a hotel or a business or a house, a condo at the beach and wherever? Oh, I sure do. Let's get up with them. Let's talk to the HOA of their community. We could blanket this area with cameras, with equipment. It's networking. You know, we're not trying to look at this as we're some rock star. I mean, I know that because of what we do, we are in the public eye, and there is a little bit of, it would be great to meet you kind of thing, but I look at it as developing relationships for how to do our jobs better in the future. Knowing people like Don Moe, we got to know more people like him. We got to know more people like Mark Hilburn, who lets us use his condo in New Smyrna Beach, because one day the hurricane is going to hit New Smyrna Beach. You understand? We got to get that network growing. And we do that through the conferences, and we can do it through meet and greets in these cities, around these cities, and grow what we're doing and keep it feeding back on itself. All very positive stuff. I'm very much looking forward to it. So please go away, COVID-19. That's the key to all of this. How about an app? I used to have an app called Hurricane Impact. Spent a lot of money getting that off the ground, and it really went nowhere. Long story, I wasn't in control of the programming for it because I don't know how to do it. I had to pay somebody else. I was the, I guess it might help if I turn off the fire. That is using my Verizon. We had to put the fire out. I think it was done. I actually it said next episode of fire. Anyway, we had an app, and I decided to not fund it anymore because it was too expensive to maintain. It was not working on Android. It wasn't working on iPhone. It was just, it was killing me, almost literally. And it was not financially sound. You know, as investors in what we're doing here, you wouldn't support something that was a big money drain. And it didn't work, you know, because it cost money, $90 an hour to the company. And they were a good company, but they don't know hurricanes. We got people now that know hurricanes, that know weather, that their passion is weather. I'm talking to you, Will. I'm talking to my friend Jason and others. I would like to have a new app for 2021. I don't know what it's going to be called yet. And it'll be tied in to Patreon. It'll just be part of Patreon, period. If you are at the $10 level or higher, you'll just have access to the app. You will literally have an interface, and we've got most of it built right now. We just have to shell it, put it in a shell, because people like an app. We have it right now where you could download a link and save it on your home screen, and it looks like an app, but I think there's something to the fact that you can go to the App Store and you download a self-contained app, and I think we're going to do it. I'm pretty sure. I want to be behind, pushing that to happen. And you would simply just log in through an interface, just like you would on Patreon. And so what we have to decide, though, not tonight, but over the next few months, what do we want in that app? I can tell you right now that the current tracking map in all of its awesomeness is, in my opinion, too grand for an iPhone app or an Android app, even if it's on a tablet. It's just too rich. It's a good thing. It's too big for the app. A version of the map, yes, that's app friendly, because that map that Will has created is, oh my gosh, remarkable. And we've only just started. So I can tell you right now, I won't have the exact tracking map in there. It's just too robust. But other stuff, an easy way to navigate the live cams. We've got a good framework so far that Jason and Will and Howard have been working on. Howard's in Bermuda. But all through the workings of all of us geniuses put together, I think we can develop an app that'll be free. You'll go to the App Store, you go to Google Play, it'll be free to download. There'll be a login and a little, like a home screen. And if you want to log in, you got to be a member of Patreon at $10 or higher, period. And if people don't like it or they can't afford it, I understand. We'll talk about that in a moment. Back to the, funding the future thing. It's just the way it is. If it's free, first of all, if all of this was free, people wouldn't value it as much. You know how it is. You value what you pay for. When stuff is free, people destroy it. You've seen that in life. So that's a good reason right there. We value what we pay for. But it's an extra incentive that we can develop a mobile version of what we're doing that works, and that the back end will be maintained by people like Will and Jason and maybe others. And some of the funding that we raise can help support that all of these volunteers eventually need to be getting paid. Is it going to be their career? I don't know. We got to get the Patreon 10, 20,000 a month to do that, but at least something, a stipend each month. We got to get there. But I want to help do that with an app. So in the works for next year, in my mind, and a good framework's already in existence, we're going to have an app, and we can decide together what would be in that app. I'll put a survey on Patreon, and we're going to talk about it. We have months to figure it out, but look for it. We're going to have an app in 2021, blended in with everything that we're doing now, a standalone app. We'll figure out what to call it and all that good stuff, and then, like I said, it'll be free to download, and you got to be a patron to access it. Speaking of off-season, another bullet point here. A big question that I have had as this has grown, what exactly do we do with this? We do hurricanes really well. We know that I study and observe and go out in other weather. Not because I'm necessarily a storm chaser, but because, and especially if you've watched the Hurricane Highway, you see we've tested a lot of stuff really from 2014 on in winter weather. Now Delaware Steve Sorinko has encouraged me for a long time to get into winter storms. That's a big market. People love to watch a good winter storm. I get all that. And I've always, how do I do it? I want to make sure I do it right. I want to immerse you. I want to have a purpose. I don't want to just be in the way, or, I want to do something different. I like doing things different. And so what we've done inherently is test new technology during the off season. I could put it out in that backyard on the other side of this iPhone and tripod all day long. And you can watch my dogs, and you can watch my neighborhood, and you can see my kids and whatever. It's kind of creepy, but that's not the same, as doing it out in real world weather where it matters. There could be a cold front that comes through, and I might want to stick a camera out there and see how well it does in the next rain. Yeah, that's fine. But why don't you do it in a big flood event like Deweyville 2016, the Tax Day Flood 2016? All of these, by the way, in episode 6 of the Hurricane Highway. Almost finished with it. Just a little teaser. We're going to talk about the Hurricane Highway in a minute in more detail. But in the off season, we're going to use that time to continue to test new stuff. The stress test, like I said, Dauphin Island. Maybe we get to do it when there's a big Gulf storm or something. I don't know. Winter storms, absolutely, we're going to cover those. And we're going to test stuff. This new device that David Addison from Buchanan, Georgia developed. I should have brought it in the office. It's just, I can't. It's too big. We have solved the bridge, the overpass thing where we can look down the road. David has come up with the solution. We're going to get more of those made. We've got to test them. We're going to do it in winter storms. I absolutely want to cover a high plains blizzard with Greg, probably. Greg's very knowledgeable about winter storms. He's got a good friend up in, what was it? Is it Sioux Falls? Rapid City, I think it is. Derek Thompson's up there. You hadn't heard much about him this year. The COVID thing has kept him away, but Derek's a great friend of our project. Storm chaser, very smart, owns his own company too. He's in South Dakota as well. Can't remember exactly what city. That's fine. Anyway, I want to cover a big raging bomb storm, as they call it, in the Great Plains. But I want to do it with purpose. And here's one of the things I want to do. You ready? This is where we're going to really start getting into some exciting stuff. This is a Raspberry Pi. See that? That's it. You hear about me, I talk about these. The Raspberry Pi is doing this. The Raspberry Pi is doing that. It's not working. It didn't turn on. This is the one that didn't turn on during Delta. Something's wrong with it. It probably shorted out. But that's a Raspberry Pi computer. It's got a little screen on it. This is what they look like. We get these from a company, I think it's called Adafruit or Adafruit, A-D-A Fruit, whatever. Jason Sikorsky told me all about these. These are how we get our weather data currently from the R.M. Young equipment, the anemometer and the pressure sensor, to our site. through these Raspberry Pis. They are Linux based, I believe, and they communicate through Wi-Fi. They have Bluetooth as well. They even have HDMI. By the way, the kids, as we call them these days, program these to play video games. Like, they can just do it in their sleep. It's amazing what you can do with these suckers. And these are like $45, $50 each. For real. That's all they are. I have a great idea. Jason is currently working on how to talk to these guys with the Raspberry Pi so that this data goes out live to our system so that you can watch it as it happens, all the way down to updating every 5 seconds. That's a possibility. I'm going to be talking to Jason tomorrow night to see how he's going with that. We had to sign some papers with Kestrel. It's a whole non-disclosure, technology license thing, and I get it. We're not going to make something new and sell it. We're going to integrate it into our current system so that when you pull up one of those cameras on the interface that Will has set up as an example, you will also be able to see live data coming from these Kestrels. Can you imagine in the next hurricane watching it live from 20 different sites? I can, and that's what we're going to do. I want to test it because we're going to get it working fairly soon. I'm confident of it. Fingers crossed. It's hard to do it, but fingers crossed that we have a whole bunch of these out there talking to the Raspberry, going to the site. Yeah, we put that into the app, you bet. And we got to test it. When do we test it? We're going to test it during winter storms. Can you imagine that? And Brent showed me that we can put these things out naked. We don't have to put them inside a box. Kestrel makes a great instrument. These can take a lot of abuse. You can even drop them in water and they work just fine. You can't take them underwater, they'll eventually crap out, but yeah, we're going to put these out and we're going to crowdsource a tremendous amount of live data. So imagine the next big time winter storm, you watch a bunch of these things, 25 degrees, dew point is this, humidity is that, and we can graph it and chart it and whatever. That's when we're going to test it during winter storms. Every live camera box by the time we get to June 1st, 2021 should have either a Verizon or an AT&T hotspot, a Nest camera for the live feed, a Raspberry Pi that will take this data from the Kestrel and stream it all live in one integrated interface. That's going to happen. And it's going to happen because of you guys. We already got the Kestrels. We got plenty of those. We're going to need some more Raspberry Pis eventually. I'll put the word out when it's time. But at $50 or roughly each, that's pretty affordable. That's a big goal for next year. One of the things I want to do, cover those winter storms, nor'easter, lake effect snow, a high plains blizzard. Absolutely. And if it snows down here in the south, you bet we're going to cover it. Then, next spring severe weather season, if we get a time period with a multi-day outbreak of severe weather, I want to mount a big project where we take all of our equipment ready to go, probably in May. Usually that's the peak severe weather month. Ship everything out ahead of time to someplace in Dallas. We'll figure it out. Maybe there's a patron there. Somebody that can accept all of our stuff. Big boxes full of stuff. Ship it all out. We fly out, rent a vehicle, and we see the moderate or the slight to moderate or whatever, the enhanced, maybe going to high risk, setting up. We will be able to see this coming days in advance. Between us and Jack and Eric, we're going to see it coming. And we set up 20, 30 cameras all around the severe weather area for 3 days and capture everything as it moves through. Not for the purpose of seeing a tornado. That's not the reason. The reason is to test it, to immerse you in it, to collect data, to show you the event from the ground, looking out at all of these different vistas. Put the GoPros out, stress test everything, find out which cameras are having problems. Maybe there's a new way to keep moisture out. Test, test, test. When do we do it? We do it during these big ticket weather events. The benefit is we get to bring you additional coverage beyond just hurricanes. So, instead of coming up with, and I've wrestled with this a lot, my wife and I have talked about it, my colleagues have talked about it, do we create an entirely new entity, company, whatever you want to call it, or keep this whole HurricaneTrack thing that I've worked so hard for 20-something years going? And I think it's, what do you call it, the latter, right? We're going to call it HurricaneTrack off-season. December 1st, all of our social media branding will have this logo right here, but then we're going to have a HurricaneTrack off-season like environment, or theme is the word. The HurricaneTrack logo with something behind it, maybe snowflakes, tornadoes, lightning, dust, for like a dust storm or monsoon or whatever. Embracing, we're still HurricaneTrack and hurricane focused, but there is an off-season component to what we are doing that goes beyond, hi, I'm Mark Sudduth, welcome to the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. We're beyond that now. The off-season component is very much like the NFL. And yes, I'm comparing myself to the NFL. How about that for arrogance? Kidding, of course. But it's kind of true. The day after the Super Bowl, what happens? A lot of people are hungover. That's the first part. Seriously, though, there's an entire network called the NFL Network. There's ESPN with Mike Golick. There used to be Mike Greenberg, but they broke up, whatever. I don't follow the NFL much, but I know enough to know that every single day there's something about the NFL out there. Trades, quarterbacks, controversies, coaching decisions, you name it. There's NFL. And the preseason, who's doing what? What's the latest news? And it's just constantly there. Now I realize, just like that movie with Will Smith about the concussions, where that one actor says, the NFL is so powerful that they own a day of the week. Well, we own, in the hurricane world, 6 months out of the year. If you think about it, June 1st through November 30th. It's a little bit more than 180 days. The rest of the season, the rest of the year, that off season, we're going to do exactly what the NFL does. And that is keep hurricanes on the front burner by way of all sorts of other things. That always goes back to what we consider the analogy here, and that is the Super Bowl of weather events, and those are hurricanes, especially your major hurricanes. Your Irmas, your Michaels, your Katrinas, your Camille's, Hugos, it goes on and on and on. And the ones that aren't so big and super and exciting. Every one of them matters. Every one of them matters to somebody. We want to cover them to the best of our ability. So we're going to spend the off season with a new version of the branding. HurricaneTrack off season. That's what it's going to be. And we're going to make our presence known. If I do an interview in a snowstorm, well, Mark, what are you doing? And I'm going to get new shirts and everything. HurricaneTrack off season. Yeah, well, whoever the interviewer is, hey, Bob, great to be here talking to you. We study hurricanes, and everything we do is geared towards that, and we're using winter storm so-and-so. The Weather Channel names the winter storms. I'm for that, believe it or not. I wish NOAA would embrace it. The UK does. The Met Office. Europe does. Story for another day, but whatever. You get the idea? We're still going to be hurricane focused, but we're going to use the off season to grow and test and keep people engaged. And by goodness, when the next hurricane comes, we will be more ready than we've ever been. And so we're going to get this stuff running, the Raspberry Pis, the Kestrels. Oh my gosh, that's going to be huge. So HurricaneTrack off season, that's the new kind of way that we're going to tackle this in the off season. I talked about testing the cameras. I talked about spring severe. Hurricane Highway. Drink of water. All right, like I said, in 2004, I created a 2-hour, roughly, documentary movie called Tracking the Hurricanes 2004. I do my own music. I play the music on these keyboards back here, and I score them myself. I talk about that in my first episode of the Hurricane Highway. I love it. It's exciting. It's challenging. I did the long format movies, whatever you want to call it, 04, 05, 08, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then I decided to switch it up. Let's do an episodic version. That is called the Hurricane Highway. I love the idea. I love the concept. It's both metaphorical, it's literal, it's got a lot of side meanings, a lot of ways that you can grow that. So that's our thing. Season 1's going to end up being 8 episodes long. 5 are already out there. Episode 1 is all about how I started. Episode 2 is kind of the next play, what we do in the off season. Episode 3 is all about Barry last year. But what we're doing with this is flashing back and reflecting on other events that got us to where we are in that current episode. For example, Barry in 2019, I talk about Barry in 2001. It's in Louisiana, Hurricane Barry 2019. Well, we were in Louisiana for Hurricane Lily. I was there for Gustav. So there's a few flashbacks. It's an opportunity to show old, 4x4 square video, from Mike Watkins' era, 08, right? And I think it's worked pretty well, considering I have done it on a $900 laptop that Carrie purchased for this project, for the whole project, back in 2017. It's a $900 laptop, for real. Seriously, it's not a big workstation. And I'm using Adobe Premiere Elements to do it. And I've pieced most of it together through people doing interviews with their iPhone. Some of them I did myself before the pandemic screwed it all up. And it's worked out pretty darn well. Episode 4 is all about the Herbie project, the weather balloon project. And that's probably the best episode overall. Close second is episode 5, which is all about Hurricane Dorian. Great interviews in there from people. Jay Barnes, Lance Escaday, lots of different people that have helped out along the way. Brent is in it, Greg is in there, and other people help to round it out, these talking head pieces as they're called. And it's worked out really well. Episode 6, like I alluded to earlier, is going to be about Tropical Storm Imelda and Tropical Storm Nestor. Nestor is where I met CJ. CJ down in Venice, Florida. You'll see him. He's got a cameo and a little bit of a co-starring role, if you will, for Nestor. Nestor wasn't a big deal, but it was part of last year's miles on the Hurricane Highway. Episode 7 will be all about the coastal storm that Tony and I tracked and dealt with on the Outer Banks last year in mid-November, and we ended up getting stuck out there for 5 days because the authorities wouldn't let us leave because the road was washed out. Famous Highway 12. And wait till you see some of that. It's remarkable. And then episode 8, the wrap-up to season 1, is about the typhoon last year that Brent took it upon himself, invested his own money and his own safety and his own, everything, and went to the Philippines in December, end of November, early December, and he did a great job. First time he'd ever done that. Took the HurricaneTrack brand with him, put out a remote cam, the GoPro, on I think it was called the Joron River or something like that. We worked with Google Earth and figuring it all out. Oh, it was remarkable. But that's part of the story. How did we get into the theater, as it's called, of typhoons? And Brent definitely has an interest in doing more of that in the future. A, when there's typhoons, because there's been a big lack of them this year, which is fine for them, I'm sure. And B, when we can travel freely around the globe again. We don't know when that's going to happen, unfortunately. And then season 1 will end with a very interesting twist. That's all I'm going to say. And that'll leave room for how we get into season 2. So season 2, there will be a season 2. Duh. We had a heck of a 2020 hurricane season. Season 2 will be the most ambitious project that I will have ever undertaken. It'll probably end up being 10 or 12 episodes. The Office one year was like 15, 16 episodes, so I can do 12. I'm hooked on The Office thanks to my wife, so that's who I blame for that. So you're going to hear a lot of Office references over the next several months. But seriously, it's going to be a lot of episodes, and I want it to be better produced because we have the funding. But we're going to need more funding. So here's my first hard pitch. For those of you that are in the position financially to produce it, and that means helping with the money part. A producer helps to raise the money and get it produced. The money people. Generally speaking, in Hollywood, that's what the producers do. I need a few executive producers, if you will, that are willing to put up potentially several $1,000s each to have your name in what we will eventually develop as an opening title sequence, way better than what I got this year. The one I did this year for season 1 was 2 graphics in Photoshop and using a zoom in feature, what you call a push in, and it makes it look like it's in motion. It's like a cheap way to do it. I want to pay somebody to create an intro. I want to pay somebody to create some great graphics. When we have a map and we're supposed to be in, Lake Charles, I want a cool map. I don't want a screenshot of Google Maps anymore. We got to pay a VFX person to do that. So we're going to need the funding. I need to be able to fly people to Wilmington and interview them and maybe even get an office. Yeah, like in Wilmington, a production office. We'll see. Depends on how much money I can raise. I've talked it over with my wife, and we're willing to take our children's playroom and convert it into a studio if we need to, temporarily. And I'm serious. Here's a pitch for you as a storyline. Phil Klotzbach from Colorado State University needs to be in this series a lot because his forecast has come to fruition. And I think he would be a great person to have as a recurring character in season 2. What is it going to be about? Like if I was to pitch this, you're Netflix, and you give me 30 seconds to pitch it to you. And who knows, maybe we'll get it on Netflix. We'll get to that. Mark, what is this Hurricane Highway? You have 15 seconds. I would say to you, think of it as a blend of Mythbusters, MacGyver or Crocodile Hunter, kind of that exciting, very technically accurate, smart host with, storm chasing as a general rule of thumb. Science, Twister, the movie Twister, all wrapped up into one. Technically accurate, no BS and manufactured drama. Let nature be the drama. And the cinematic part, bring that to National Geographic quality level. And I'm telling you, we've got it. With Brent's stuff, with my captured stuff, the time lapse, the GoPros, the high resolution, oh my, you guys have no clue. With a Hans Zimmer type score. He is probably my favorite composer. The music score on the level of Hans Zimmer. And I know before you go, oh, give me a break, dude. If you've not listened to the music that I have done, and I'm just saying, he's my influence, I will produce an even better score than I've done this year. And it'll round out and end up being a truly remarkable production that'll show the historic nature of the 2020 hurricane season with explanations as to why things are happening. As an example, Laura and that building that we captured with all the shredding of the windows, I want to interview an expert on mesovortices. I want to interview an engineer about why the windows did that. Get that science in there. Educate people while we wow them with the video, with the storyline, and with a soundtrack that makes them think that we paid Hans Zimmer to do the music. That's what I want to do. But we need some bigger funding to do this beyond the Patreon. So, and I'll talk about this in a separate post, if you were in the position to become an executive producer, that at the beginning of each episode, it'll say executive producer, Fred Smith. You get me? Executive producer. James Smith. You understand? But here's my budget. I want to raise anywhere from $35,000 to $100,000. And before you go, oh, are you kidding me? That's not a lot of money at all when you're talking about a television show. What am I going to do with that money? I would use it to produce it to the best of its ability. Most of it. Fly to where I need to fly. Go interview the people I need to interview. Fly them here if I need to. Buy the equipment necessary. Pay for the special effects that we're going to need. Mainly the maps and some of these, like a true introduction. A really good intro. We don't have to pay for the music because I'm doing the music. A professional voice actor to narrate it. And I've already got somebody in mind, a gentleman named Josh Blaylock from Atlanta. I'm going to audition him. We're going to go through some ideas for the style of narration. I will be the host, if you will, but I'm not going to narrate it. It's going to be Josh Blaylock, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure. He's good, too. Wait till you see. And it's going to take money. And then I want to market it. It'll be free. I want this to be a free, crowd-funded, Merry Christmas to everybody else, on YouTube, not monetized, and on Amazon Prime Video, and let the world see it. And then I want to promote it. I want to have the money. If we have to, sometimes you have to pay for news coverage. That's a real thing. People do it all the time. Somebody has a book out. They pay a news station $2,000 and they get to come on and talk about their book. It's all part of promoting the book. If we have to pay for some interviews, we'll pay for some interviews. I want to advertise on Amazon. I want to advertise on YouTube. I want to promote it. And I want to get potentially 1 million people to watch each episode. That would be fantastic because it's going to be that darn good. So some people are in the position where they could bankroll and produce the money side of this project. If you are in that position, let me know. And we will reward that. And it's just that's what Hollywood does. There's a great movie on Epix, a great series based on the movie and based on the book called Get Shorty. Now, we don't need any gangsters producing this, because that's what it is gangsters and drug dealers in that series. The new ones with Ray Romano and that Irish actor, I can't remember, Chris O'Donnell, I think it is. It's very well done, by the way. But those are the producers that make the money part happen. The dog's chiming in. Wonderful. And the dog wants to contribute. That's what it is. That's an ambitious goal. A floor of 35 grand, a ceiling of 100,000, somewhere in between. And we'll put your name in the credits, and we'll make it known that you are the one that helped to produce it. And you might even get to be in it at some point. And you know what? That's forever. That lives on the internet forever. And you help to bring something to reality. If we don't meet that goal, I'll do what I can with the existing Patreon funding, and we'll do the best we can. It'll still be better than what we did last year, that is for sure. So season 2, I anticipate that the first episode would be ready by sometime in May. And we'll have a big launch party, promote the heck out of it on social media, probably pay for a satellite media tour. That costs money, where we literally talk to 20, 30 TV stations around the world, promoting it. I'll have a trailer made, the whole bit, a movie trailer. And I mean it, I really want to do something good, unless somebody out there knows somebody that's already in television, that knows a producer in Hollywood or whatever that has Netflix or Hulu or Amazon connections that could get us in front of the right people. You only got a couple weeks, because I'm going to start working on this one way or the other. I'm getting it done. But I'm serious. If one of you out there, you know what, I know a guy, he might, seriously, put us in touch. I am not going to go on social media and say, hey, can somebody help us get a Netflix deal? That's not what I want to do. It's, maybe somebody already knows somebody. But you know what? That's not the end game. If we're not on Netflix, I don't care. And that doesn't mean I don't care. Yeah, that would be great. But I'm going to produce it one way or the other. Look at what I have done. And I literally edited that entire thing, all 5 episodes that are on there now. And I am going to brag about this. I did that by myself. My family will attest to it. Hiding in the office on that one little laptop right there. Here, I'll show you. That's what it looks like. That's it. That's where it's produced. You're looking at it. For real. I'd buy a better computer, and there's room for it behind the camera, a workstation with a big monitor, and we'll do it right. I just don't want to lose control of it. I want to be able to make sure that I have my own creative process involved, etc. So you got to be careful a little bit if you get, like if Netflix came in, who knows, man. We're not going to interject any drama that's not already there. Stuff like that. We just don't want to lose sight of where this is going. Scientifically accurate, exciting, a sweet music score, educational, telling a story of the 2020 hurricane season. Hurricane Highway Season 2, I want to get you involved if you're able to do so and become a producer. A lot of you, of course, the whole thing, I just want to make sure I make this clear. The whole Patreon thing of $25 and up, the $100 level, you're still getting your name in the credits. That's not changing. I'm talking about the opening credits, executive producer Bob Smith. You know what I'm saying? We're like, maybe even in the interviews, if they so would want to be. Oh yeah, this is Bob, and he helped to produce it. He's one of our producers. You ever want to produce a television show? Now's your chance. So there's that. Talked about vehicle already, the rental. Yeah, just a couple things and I'll wrap it up. The biggest thing that you guys can do, and I'll preface this with saying, again, thank you, especially in this big economic downturn, in the pandemic, this era of COVID-19, and many people losing their jobs. that you are willing to support this project with your hard-earned money. Some people have done well even during the pandemic. And if you read economic stuff, that's true. And they have been largely unaffected and even grown their businesses. It's just been weird how that's worked. Other people have lost jobs. It's been very difficult. But that being said, this Patreon grew significantly in the face of all of that. That's amazing. So, thank you. I mean, I am astounded. I really am. That means either I'm doing something right or I don't know. I mean, it's really amazing. So, seriously, we all thank you because it's benefited a lot of people. And that's the end of the day what we're trying to do. If I was able to make this free for everyone through an endowment that somebody wrote a check each year to fund this whole thing, I would absolutely do it. I just got to be able to pay my bills and support, as my wife does with her job, my family. That's the root. And then beyond that, do the best I can with the business. But honestly, if I won the lottery tonight, I would still do it. So, short of that, the single biggest thing that you can do if you're in the position to do so is stick around. In public radio, they have what's called sustaining members. And those are the members that support public radio month in and month out. And I get it. Some people cannot do it. They need that $10. And believe me, I totally understand where you're coming from. But if you can, I need you to stick around because we're just going to grow from here. You're supporting the future of this. In addition to that, just so you know, you can adjust your patronage to whatever level you want. If you're at $10 and you want to go to $50, you can do so. You can go to $12. You can go to $13.55. You can go to $8. One thing I am going to do, because I think it's probably time, because we want to make this look valuable to people, we don't really need the $1 level anymore. So starting November 1st, I'm going to trim that off. The entry level will be $10 because I believe, it's worth $10 a month. And if you stretch that out, it's $120 a year. And for what we're doing and the scope that we're doing it and the scale that we're doing it, I do not believe that is too much to ask for people who are in the position to do so. We spend $20, $30, $40 if we go to the movies. Well, nobody's going to the movies anymore to speak of. So invest it in this until that changes. I mean, hey, why not? But seriously, you look at it in that realm and that bigger picture, it's $120 a year. That's not that big of a deal. If we can get about 1,000 people a year and have a budget of about 100 to 120 grand, that's not my income. That is not my income. I'm going to take that and I'm going to use it to do what we do, to add the AT&T, to add more cameras, to have the vehicles, to be able to pay people like Will, to be able to help people like Kari, Spooky, to help CJ, to pay Jack. I don't need to be the only one benefiting from this financially. It's my job. I've already talked about that ad nauseum, but it's time to spread the wealth a little bit if we can. If we get to the point where it can become people's full-time jobs, I will say this. If you look on Patreon, there are some podcasts that are bringing in $30,000, $40,000 a month or more because they have 15,000 patrons. If we get to that point, you bet your butt I will form a corporation and we will have paid full-time people. And we might get there someday. That is up to you. I need you to do what Don Moe did. You got to talk about it to people. So here's my challenge. Everybody watching that's a current patron knows at least one person that would dig this. That would be, you know what? Jack would be all into this. My neighbor Jack. He is just a weather geek and he's got a condo down in Miami or whatever. Man, this would be right up his alley. If we doubled the patronage, are you serious? I mean, I would almost have my budget for the Hurricane Highway right there, season 2. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Spread the word, especially when we get an event. We got to talk about it. And again, you got to move away and understand it's not making Mark rich. If you knew what it cost to do this, and I will eventually create some spreadsheets and I'm going to start showing you because I think it's the right thing to do. But just as a reminder, I covered the hotel rooms, well, you did because of your support. Every one of us has our own hotel room. And you might think to yourself, well, that's a waste of money. You guys should be staying in the same room. Oh, yeah? Come with us on a mission sometime and tell me how that works out for you. Everybody, Brent, me, Greg, Mike, you got to have your own pillow in your own bed and the peace and quiet of your own room, because that's your only solitude for the whole mission. Because every time we're outside, it's just constant input from people. We're phone calls, Weather Channel, people on the chat, and that's all great. But it gets to you, and you got to have that solitude, or you go bat bleep crazy. You do. So we're able to do that now. It's so important. When I hear of chasers sleeping in their car, 5 guys in a room, I go, and we had to do that in the past, believe me. I slept in my Tahoe more times than I want to admit. Jesse and I have had to stay in the same frickin' room, Mike Watkins and I in the same darn bed in the aftermath of Ike, and the room is wet because the windows blew out. Those days are over, and we need that kind of space to be able to, I got to do my updates. I got to be able to, you got to be able to breathe. So that costs money. It does, and that's what this goes towards, the rental. Like I said, we got a sweet deal this year through Thrifty. Am I going to be able to have that next year? I don't know. Yeah, I might think about buying a vehicle. That's a whole story for another day. That comes with other problems. You got to keep it maintained. But anyway, that costs money to rent something substantial. We got to pay for the Verizon stuff. We got to pay for helium. We got to buy equipment. We got to put gas in the gas tanks. We have to feed everybody. That Cheesecake Factory, Brent usually pays for that, and he has been great about that. I'm serious. Keep us well fed, we're happy, but it cost a lot of money. I think I have spent between $18,000 and $21,000 on everything since May. For real, absolutely for real. And luckily, I'm able to work with the Weather Channel, and they license video for me, and I'm just being straight up transparent here, that they have helped with that cost. That is the extent of it. And I'm not complaining. It is what it is. Would I love a full-on contract with the Weather Channel? Probably. It's security. But is it? What happens when the media world changes once again and they have to cut people? I mean, that's just the way it is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not evil. Media and corporations. It's just the way it is. So I'm extremely grateful to be able to work with the Weather Channel. I grew up with them as a kid. I mean, why not? And that helps. It helps. And so at least I'm able to support my family and invest the extra income in more equipment and grow things and save money so that I can do things like, I'm going to fly to Colorado tomorrow. Remember that back in September? Spur of the moment, I think I might go. Yep, I'm going. I flew out, no problem. That's $900 something for that plane ticket. Yes, last minute's expensive. $300 or $400 for the rental, several $100s for the hotel. You understand. I want to be able to do that. Now, the only way we can do that is we got to have people sustain and stick around, and we got to spread this like wildfire, as it were, and maybe eventually we will cover wildfires. Word of mouth, what Don Moe opened my eyes to, wide open, is a big key to the future of this. People that trust other people. They trusted him. They believed in what he was doing and saying about us, and look at where it got us. We gained over 100 patrons because of it. But we got to keep those patrons in the long term. What else? And what I'm going to do is when I'm done, I'm going to get the iPad and start looking at the chat and see what you guys are thinking. History, the birth of Patreon. I thanked you guys. I appreciate it. And I can't thank you enough. I mean, honestly. And I can't wait to hopefully shake all of y'all's hands somehow, someday in person. That would be great. Yep. How to promote it. The Facebook groups, testing the cameras, Spring Severe. I'll talk a little bit about, we've dabbled in maybe trying to talk to California and the venture capital people. Yeah, I guess I will mention it. If we really want to take a gigantic leap, I don't know if anybody's watching and you know people. Austin, Texas is a big tech area. Yes, I am willing to entertain venture capital investment. But, as you know, with that kind of investment, there could be some strings attached. Now, it's got to be careful that we continue to do what we do the way we want to do it. And that it's an angel investment, initially. That we could promote what we're doing. At the end of the day, it's for the greater good. And if we can find out a way that this could be profitable for some investors, sure. Kind of the social media version of weather coverage, social weather, something like that. So yeah, I mean, if anybody out there that's watching knows a VC, a venture capitalist, can put me in touch, yes, I'm willing to entertain that. Or you yourself, you never know. A big investment where we can, be ready to put $10,000 into Facebook marketing, or buy a vehicle outright, or whatever the case may be. Yes, we're willing to entertain that. I thought about not mentioning that because that's more, you think about Facebook, how they got started, big tech companies, venture capital money. But $1 million, $250,000, $500,000, are you kidding? You know what kind of promotion we could do with that? We could literally start our own internet, weather company, unlike anything. It's a shot in the dark, lightning in a bottle, but you never know. Look at where I am versus where I was 3 years ago with crowdfunding. All right, last thing is equipment needs. From time to time, I will put a wish list out there. And we always need batteries, these battery packs. I can never have too many because there's going to be instances where I will ship a whole bunch of stuff somewhere. And we got to have stuff here if we run out of stuff because it was over there. You understand? So we're never going to have enough equipment. So between the battery packs, the Raspberry Pis, I mean, we're doing pretty good. I do want to get some more of these anemometers. I should have brought one. They're big. Looks like a torpedo. Those are about $1,500 a pop. But boy, they measure the wind like nothing else can. It's just they're bulky. It's hard to transport them. But these are solvable problems. We can figure all this out. I'd rather have the equipment, figure out what the heck I'm going to do with it because I got so much, than not have it at all. But yeah, there will always be equipment needs. From the batteries, that's the most important. More Nest cameras. And speaking of Nest cameras, we are going to be expanding our permanent cameras. We met Scott out there in Colorado Springs, very much and totally thanks to Matt from Austin, who introduced us to Scott. And Scott's going to be having a live cam out there in the Black Forest, Colorado Springs area, looking out at Pikes Peak. We're hoping to have one up in Chicago. We got one in Freeport, Texas now. Just kind of a permanent live camera thing. You can tune in, kind of like Surfline for surfing. EarthCam has, but it's just for us, and Rodanthe. I know Cecil, you want the Rodanthe cam to come back on. It's just brutal out there. The salt spray gets in there, and we're going to fix the Rodanthe cam soon because Cecil gets up and he looks at that camera and he finds peace when that beautiful sunrise comes up over the Atlantic. But we want to expand our camera network and have a good view of something interesting. And we'll continue to work on that as well. So what I'm going to do is kind of wrap up, with a formal ending, so to speak, of my part, and then look at the chat here on my iPad and get rid of the Netflix fireplace and kind of see what you guys are thinking, what your input is. But we're not going to solve everything tonight. I want you to ruminate on everything, maybe watch this again a couple of times. I've been going for 114 minutes, almost 2 hours. But any good investor meeting should last as long as it takes to go over everything. And what we are doing is beyond the scope of anything on television. It really is. What any other storm chaser is doing. And that's not an indictment against them at all. This is just the nature of what we are doing. Let's focus on what we are doing. Not going to worry about what other people are doing. Other people are going to try to set up cameras. Other networks are doing it. Fox News, the Weather Channel. And that's great. The more the better. But nobody is doing it the way we are doing it. And that's not just an expression. It's the truth. And what we have done with it is truly remarkable. And I believe that it is just the beginning, even though it's 15, 16 years old now. Where we go from here is going to be entirely driven by you. You're going to crowdfund it. You're going to crowdsource it with your ideas, your input, your thoughts, your wishes. And then together, we're going to make this into even bigger an enterprise. So that at the end of the day, yes, when the big hurricanes come, we are ready to cover it, provide data, provide help to people, provide them, even if they know that it's really bad, it gives them, they know. We want to take the guesswork out as best we can. Maybe even provide with some of our camera systems a way to fight and help to get insurance claims settled in a fair manner, like we're learning from our Hurricane Michael video from Mexico Beach. But at the same time, maybe work with insurance companies, work with homeowner associations, do more Zoom stuff, live presentations, Hurricane U. Get people in, Jack, Eric, other people, even people that are controversial. Let's bring them in and talk about things, address climate change, address the fire situation in California. The more we understand about the weather, and when it turns against us, the less fearful we are. And that's the truth about anything. We fear what we don't understand. And the more we understand, the more we can respect it and appreciate it. And at the end of the day, that makes us better prepared. We're better prepared as citizens of this country, maybe of your country, Norway. We got somebody watching in Norway. We got people in the UK, people in Ireland. It doesn't matter. The weather is the one thing that ties every single human being on earth together, because it affects every single thing we do, whether you realize it or not. And we got to embrace it. We have to be prepared. We have to be knowledgeable. And we can all do this together, centered around that one mega event, what we call hurricanes, the Super Bowl of weather. And we can use the off season just like the NFL does to be ready, so that each time the Super Bowl comes around, and sometimes it's multiple times a year with hurricanes, we are as ready as we can possibly be. So I appreciate everything you have done. Again, from my family, we appreciate it. My extended family of the HurricaneTrack world, the folks on YouTube that watch, the people that comment and provide encouragement. Yeah, there's a few negative people, but you know what? They just need a hug. They need somebody to tell them it's going to be okay. You do matter. Don't be so negative out there and thumbs down everything. Think positive. We've done some remarkable things, and you are a part of it, even if you like it or not. If you're watching this video, you do like it somewhere deep inside, even if you're grumpy at everything else. All right? So I'm a glass half full guy, and that's still a glass that's 90% full, because I haven't drunk much. So let's change that, shall we? Keep my throat nice and lubricated, and so I don't get dried out and cough, and then you think I've got the COVID. So look, let me get on the chat, and let me ask you, what do you think? I'm looking at the chat right there. This is our chat that we have. It's our special chat, and this is what our patrons get access to. I'm just going to look at the very bottom, 5 seconds ago, from CJ and Spooky. I like the questions, on the hurricane tracking map. Post the time of the track, that way people will know that it's the current track from the NHC. Got it? And these are things that we can look at, and Will can take a look at. Turnaround time frame to push surge, time lapse, destruction, info to the Weather Channel, local TV station, etc. Guest needs to be captured and produced for in another area. Plans for season 3. You're killing me there, Corey. That's 2022. Let's get through season 2 first. Season 3, let's just vow, that will be on Netflix. All right? Season 3. That will be on Netflix. It'll be a Netflix top 10 show. Oh yeah, Ralph. People are asking about my original music. Thanks, Ralph. Great. Oh, crap. I forgot what somebody... I didn't make a note, and it's my fault. I'm pretty organized. I've gotten a lot better than I have been, believe me. And I'm going to tell you something. Mike Farrow told me during one of these, I think it was Laura, he said, "You are the most organized person that I have ever met." And if he knew how many people would die laughing, who I have known in my life, but when I'm in hurricane mode, to a fault, I get laser focused. And I've done a lot better. Lists, packing, I mean, we rarely screw up anymore. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I did forget to mention one thing. So let me just make a quick note right here, and I'm going to address what Ralph said. All right. Okay, so Ralph was talking about my original music. Short answer, yes, I am going to work on capturing each needle drop. In other words, each track that you might be familiar with, like opening theme, whatever, a particular segment where there's a beginning and an end. The problem is, the way I do my music is kind of unorthodox. I get the synthesizer back there, I turn it on, I run it into my laptop, another laptop I've got, in a program called Audacity, and I just play live. Literally, it's a workstation, and so it's got layers, and it's very complicated. Maybe one day I'll do a little side thing about exactly how I do the music. And I just jam, and I record everything completely improvised. And that's the truth. Whatever comes out. Again, like Hans Zimmer said, I don't know where music comes from, and I don't. It just comes through the fingers. And so I end up with all these tracks and, jam sessions, if you will, and I end up extracting them from a WAV file, and I put them in the show where I think they go appropriately. So what I need to do is go in and find those particular needle drops, that's what they're called, separate them out, and put them on probably SoundCloud. I had somebody on, I think it was either Twitter or YouTube, suggest that I do this same thing. So Ralph, yes, I am going to put the music from the Hurricane Highway on the internet, and I'm going to make it free. It's going to be crowdfunded by you guys. I think it's an offshoot. Again, something that I can do that could affect people. People like the music, and I appreciate that. It is coming. I'll probably have it divided up into, this is from earlier stuff, from tracking the hurricanes to the modern stuff from Hurricane Highway, but that's coming. Now, and I can't believe I almost forgot this next part. One of the all-time greatest ideas that was presented to me, and boy, am I going to get in trouble because I can't remember who said it because I'm so excited about it. So I'm apologizing in advance for not remembering who said it. Crap. It's okay. You will remember who you are, and it'll be okay. I'm going to get red and blush here. Somebody had the great idea, and it's okay. You'll forgive me for forgetting your name of who suggested it. Two of you had a similar idea almost at the same time, and that is this. We create, if you are willing, as patrons, a database that we have everybody's latitude and longitude. And so basically the idea is this. We get all of our users, especially our long-term sustained supporters, in a database, and so that with a layer that Will would add to the map, you can flip it on and you can see where everybody is. And yes, there are privacy issues. We will figure that out so that we can do it where you're not identified. We can assure that there's no way that if we got breached and someone stole all that data that it could be used against you. I mean, yes, there are some challenges. We just live in that crappy world where we got to worry about that. But let's think positive. Here's the thing that this person suggested. You flip it on, you populate that map. The cone of uncertainty, now you get to see all the people in the cone of uncertainty. And you mouse over or you click or whatever, and maybe it's just initials, maybe it's just a first name. Bob in Memphis, Sandra in Baton Rouge, whatever. And that might be the only data that we store. Bob in Memphis, his latitude, longitude, and just a general idea that it's Memphis. Probably not right down to their house level. We'll have to figure that out because there can be some privacy problems there. But the idea is, you see it all the time. 42 million people are in the path of winter storm so-and-so. The Weather Channel likes to say that. Big media likes to say that. It's big numbers. I get it. Well, we can do the same thing. Our group, who's in the path of this storm? Who are in these watches and warnings? Then we know, well, maybe Bob in Memphis. Hey, Bob, can you go out and take some video of what's going on? Maybe Bob has a Nest Cam. It might not look out across some amazing vista. It might be just across the street, but it's enough that we can see that storm through Bob's camera. All he has to do is send us the embed code. But the idea of taking our group and mapping them, that's a really great idea. I like that. We'll come up with a name for it. We're going to figure out how to do it, and we're going to do it in a way that'll protect people's individual privacy. And I think it's a fantastic idea. And I forget who suggested it, and I'm sorry. But man, I remember I read that. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I think that it was Matt in Austin, if I'm not mistaken. And Matt's probably done screaming at his computer now. That was me! And somebody else had a very similar suggestion simultaneously as well. which I think is amazingly weird. That's a great coincidence. But then it made me think of another idea related to it real quick. We definitely need to create a database of what I call safe houses, or some other better term, of locations of homes, businesses, whatever, where we can put our units, our camera systems, and our instruments. As an example, I think you understand, but as an example, the people down in Dauphin Island that allowed us to put a camera system on their house, I put on Twitter, hey, does anybody know anybody in Dauphin Island? We need your help. So some very nice people from Starkville, Mississippi said, yep, you can use our house. And we put a camera there, and it's all good. Nobody's going to get mad at us. Nobody's going to take it. The utility company doesn't get pissed off, whatever. And it's a friendly location. We need to develop that. And it's preferable that they are patrons. That's great, of course, but they don't have to be. But let's start putting the word out. Let's create a database that's, private only to us, the internal group, that we know hurricane's going to hit the Outer Banks. I can go up to the Howe residence. I know some people up there, Pat Howe, and we're going to put a camera on their house and a pressure sensor, the whole kit and caboodle. I know that the mayor of Isle of Palms says that we can put a camera on the such and such bridge. That the fire chief in wherever, Louisiana, is absolutely cool with us putting a camera at his fire station. It doesn't matter. A Waffle House owner, the corner fish market. I don't care. Let's get locations ahead of time. There's a guy, trying to remember his name here. I know it's in here. He signed up during, Delta. Sorry, I'm getting so excited here. He signed up during Delta, and trying to remember here. Here we go. Martin. This guy Martin. And Martin says, hey Mark, somehow I missed this message and I apologize. If another hurricane comes this way, please keep my cell phone number, and feel free to contact me. My family owns 30,000 acres of land in Cameron, Grand Chenier, and Vermilion, Pecan Island parishes. 30,000 acres, are you kidding me? We also own a house that withstood Hurricanes Rita, Laura, and Delta, so forth and so on. This person, Martin, we gotta know more Martins. We do. We gotta know these places so we can show up and we can work efficiently. And we know there's a camera that's gonna go right there, and it's gonna be fine, and it's gonna have a view, and it's gonna help people. We gotta do that. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? And we gotta have people on the outside that are reminding me, almost like Jack Bauer in 24, thing in my ear, Mark, this is Chloe, don't forget, for real, seriously. We go to an area and we know exactly what we're gonna do. We got to do that in the off season, and we can do it. We can reach out, and it's going to be a big effort, but we can put together a database, and we can do that. So, Ralph, you set me off with your idea about the music. Yes, that's going to happen. Matt with the idea from Austin of crowdsourcing locations of where all the people are, and then that gave me the idea of building this database of safe houses, literally, like Wendy and Michael in Freeport, Texas. That's a permanent camera. You got the idea, though. Sorry, I get really excited because I'm just passionate about it. All right, what else we got? Real quick. So past storms, Will and I will be working on that. Yes, we're going to make enhancements to the super duper tracking map, whatever we end up calling it. And if you're not a part of this yet, that tracking map is worth the price of admission itself, in my opinion. It is beyond incredible what Will Woodgate did. And just so you know, real quick background, in case you don't know, he does software development. He's great at coding, and he had a thriving business. He was doing well. The pandemic hit. He ran into a roadblock like a lot of people did, with people laying people off and cutting projects. And out of the goodness of his heart, he came to me with an email. Basically, I am your genie in a bottle. What is your wish for your site? Something I can create for you. What do you want? I'm like, okay, well, this will be interesting. And I sketched out a few things. And the end result today, October 15th, 2020, is, in my opinion, outside of Storm Pulse, Risk Pulse, which is a great mapping company. You remember Storm Pulse? Matt Winsing and his company? Boy, look at what they've done. They now are in Austin, by the way. I would honestly say, with the exception of Storm Pulse, it is the greatest tracking map of its kind in the world. Like they say on those memes or whatever, prove me wrong or whatever, change my mind, prove me wrong, show me otherwise. Right up there with what Kitty Code had in Hurricane Pro. But this has the layers, that was a great tracking map and great app, what Eileen and Kitty Code did. For real, Will Woodgate did that. So yes, we're going to improve that map. Believe me, this is just the beginning. We're going to be unleashed. Herbie. Oh yeah. The Hurricane Research Balloon Project. I'm going to think about maybe changing the payload, a redesign. Still going to have 2 GoPros. Still going to have the weather computer, the same general idea, but maybe a slightly different design. Make it softer, lighter. I will work on that independently. We're not going to solve that problem tonight. So, you think about things, it's already good. Let's see if we can improve upon it. And then, yes, it would be pretty remarkable that if we contacted NASA, and if the one-off chance that in the eye of the hurricane they could photograph the weather balloon in the stratosphere, yeah, that would make my career. That would be it. I'd probably cry like a baby if they did that. Yep, Ralph, with the idea of height markers. We will get better at showing you how high the water is getting at different locations during storm surge. And we can do that and prove it and test it. Here's back to the testing thing. During spring flooding that will inevitably come in the spring of 2021, somewhere in the United States, there will be spring flooding somewhere where the rivers are going to rise, and we can put these markers out. And it's a very simple concept using orange flagging markers. And we know, okay, that marker right there in front of the camera is 9 feet or 7 feet or whatever the case may be. 5, 10, 15. If it's at the top marker, it reached 15 feet. Simple, easy to do. We don't have to take a lot of hardware with us. Plum Island, yep. Terrible time keeping sand on the beach. I'd love to host a camera. Oh yeah, that'd be amazing. Yep, so that's the thing, Katie, in Massachusetts. We have been crowdfunded numerous Nest cameras. And some of them are going to go into the inventory of sending to people just like you. In some instances, you got to have permission from your HOA or your condo person or whatever if it's not an individual home. But these are absolutely things that we can do in the future is set people up with cameras. Send them a camera. Absolutely. View. Yeah, we are going to be working on t-shirts this year. Representative of just 2020. A lot of them I will produce and we're going to give to a lot of our supporters as a big thank you. There's a woman named Catherine that's working on that for us. Met her through social media, I think it was during Laura, might have been before Laura. We have gotten to know a lot of people this year. But absolutely, a 2020 t-shirt is coming as well. Yep, definitely getting in with, spreading the word, the dog. Are you done? No. Working with nonprofits, working with, civic groups, being able to be invited to speak at Rotary clubs. I know that the whole pandemic thing is really hard on that, but getting out in the community more, doing more speaking, getting the word out about what we do. There are a lot of things that we can do in the future. And I'm going to wrap it up because I want to edit on my season 1, episode 6 some more. Plus, it's getting late. Oh yeah. So one last thing, we had this. This is what one looks like that's still inside this fast signs made this for me. On our rentals, we will be putting our signage. But a big part of that, and Ralph's got a good point, that the local officials know who we are. A lot of that is handled before the season ever even starts. Maybe sending a PDF file to every emergency manager in every county in the United States. Something. That's where the hurricane conference comes in. We got to get to know these people in person. But we have somebody on the outside that can help. I'm driving. I'm trying to focus on a billion things. A person on the outside that knows how to do it. They can call ahead. reach the emergency management director, the chief of police of some community. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm working with a group that's publicly funded through crowdfunding. They want to set up some equipment. They need access. Who do we talk to? Where can they go to get a permit to meet you? Whatever. You're always going to have that one person, every random place, you never know, that doesn't like what we do, thinks that we're some crazy storm chasers. Maybe they think we are a threat, that we're trying to be first responders like they are or something. Once in a blue moon we run into that. By and large, law enforcement embraces what we do because many times we can help them. We never, ever purposely charge law enforcement or emergency management to access our stuff. I want to continue to develop a back end where they can monitor stuff without having to log in. Just a link, a business card that I can hand them when we reach a sheriff's deputy at a checkpoint and we tell them what we're doing. And, oh, that's great. That's really interesting. Is there a way I can view this? Here you go, sir. Give him a link that he can send out to his people. But we got to be careful because it's got to be a way that if it got out on social media, that it won't hurt us. It won't cannibalize. That everybody goes, hey, we can watch it there for free. You don't need to sign up. Because if this isn't funded, it doesn't go anywhere. It's not about profiting. It's about being able to operate. You know what I mean? It's like if everybody listened to XM radio for free, nobody would be able to enjoy it because it would go to, it would go bankrupt. So we want to be able to benefit the greater good without sacrificing the business side of this and the fact that it needs to operate. And together we can figure out how to do that. All right? So I'm going to sign off, finish up, let this thing render out, and then I'll post it again. I'm going to edit it and trim it and whatever, and so people can watch it that weren't able to tune in. My email is Hurmark, Hurrmark, Hurmark, like Hurricane Mark, Hurrmark at Hurricane, sorry. I don't use the HurricaneTrack stuff as much. Gmail is just better. Hurmark@gmail.com. And by the way, I do want to revamp the HurricaneTrack.com site. I probably should have made a bullet point about that. It's more of a minor thing that I'm going to work on myself, but a modern version, bring WordPress back probably, make it easier to do blogging, and also give a better facelift to the whole insider look, make it modern, whatever, and we'll work on all that. Those are cosmetic things. But my email is hermark@gmail.com. If you're interested in supporting further, if you want to remain anonymous, Mark, I want to contribute some huge amount, but I don't want anybody to know. It's just a private thing. Or you want everybody to know. Let me know, and we'll do whatever works for you. And we've had people that do that, and it makes a big difference. Again, my analogy is public radio. There is some great stuff on public radio. It is member supported. We don't have the benefit, though, of an allocation from Congress like public radio does. We are entirely member supported, well, almost entirely. The relationship I have with the Weather Channel helps, but what we're doing with crowdfunding is growing faster than that is. And that's great. I still want to work with the Weather Channel, don't get me wrong. I want to work with all the media, actually, that would just benefit us. But it is pretty much entirely up to you. So to just recap a couple of important points. If you can stay, there's more. Come for the hurricanes, stay for the off-season stuff. It's not just about a flash in the pan. Oh, I want to see the hurricane. And when the hurricane's gone, I'm dropping off. I mean, if you have to, you have to. I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm very grateful you gave me your trust to begin with. But if you're in the position, and even more importantly, maybe you can increase it to help offset the attrition that we do get. Or go recruit folks. Like I said, you know people, I'm sure, that are going to be into this just as much as you are. Spread the word. Talk about it. Talk positively. The Amazon stuff, go on there, write a good review. Try to make it get boosted so it gets picked up better. Get the word out about what we're doing. I want to make as much of this available to as many people as possible at no cost. But we got to figure out that happy medium ground to where we can fund it so that I can make a living and we can also have the best equipment and the best show, the best face out there possible. And we're still working on that, and we'll talk about that. Like if everything was out there available on YouTube, and we also had a version online. I mean, there might be hybrid ways to do this to where, we do make everything available out there via YouTube, and you can watch it. And if you want to support it, you can. But we got to be careful, because if everything is free, it won't get supported the way it should. That's just the way life is. I hate the fact that we do have to have a paywall, but you know what? I have met some remarkable people because of that, because they trusted me, they trusted my project. We have met because of the weather, and I think that's incredible. You've brought me a long way. We've done this together. It's only October 15th. We still have 45 days of this hurricane season left, maybe more, you never know. We're going to grow bigger, we're going to get stronger, we're going to do some incredible things in the future, and you guys are going to be a part of it. You're already a part of it, and for that, I thank you. I may get on the chat after I hit stop on this, and we'll talk about some ideas that you've got, and we will grow from here, all right? Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. What a remarkable year it has been. What a remarkable 15, 16 years that the Hurricane Landfall Project has enjoyed. We are in the age of crowdfunding, and I think that's the future of this for many years to come. Because unlike having a major sponsor or a major corporate partner, with one phone call, it doesn't all come to a screeching halt. And if it grew like it did in the middle of a massive global pandemic, imagine what we're going to be able to do as we recover out of that in the future. Next year's hurricane season, I have no idea. I will say this. I'll leave you with this one little thought. If you're mainly interested in the hurricanes, you definitely want to stick around, because the La Nina is going to be strong. And we've never had, to my knowledge, an El Nino form immediately after a La Nina. And more than likely, the Atlantic will remain warmer than average. Odds are the 2021 hurricane season will be above average. So at the very least, you want to stick around and see how that works out. Because that is, after all, what HurricaneTrack was all about when I began it in 1999. And here we are today, doing some of the most remarkable things on the internet and in the world. It really is. You're part of something special. So have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for enduring me for more than 2 hours. I appreciate it. I love to talk, but at least we talked about some very relevant stuff, and we hit a bunch of great points. All right. I'm going to sign off. I am Mark Sutton, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for being on your side of the screen supporting this project. I'll talk to you again tomorrow with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion, if this will let me